What's happening, everybody? We're glad to have you with us. Everyone is still filing in. David, you look like you are. Did John Oliver rent his pandemic set from you? Is that where it came from?
Yes, it was my idea originally.
Yeah, I
It's
love
that good, right? It's that
it.
good.
It is honestly. I love the just the blank white wall. It it gives me like super minimalist vibes and a
Okay.
little bit of PTSD from like 5 years ago when I was doing my webinars in front of a blank white wall too.
That's
So
great, man. I never imagined it would have had such an effect. That this was really just me being lazy. Honestly, that's all this is.
all good, man. All good. All right. So we've got all right, we got some people here. We are going to just introduce ourselves real quick. I am Steve Taylor. I am the lead content manager here at Alternative Payments, and uh, I was an MSP for over 10 years. I've been an IT professional in some capacity for over 20. And now I have the great pleasure of being able to produce content multiple times a week for MSPs. Um, and I am joined today by David Rihak from Peg. Peg? Peg.
Yes, Peig and Rihak, you got it right.
Yes.
You got it right.
Yeah, I asked you Rihak and I forgot to verify Peg.
That's
Uh
good. That's good.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I'm David Rihak. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Peig. We are a what you would normally categorize as a cybersecurity vendor, I guess, or a tool producer or whatever. We focus on something we call device-bound access security, which is a really reliable way to make sure accounts don't take or aren't taken over, basically, and that you don't have hackers taking over your accounts and doing nasty things, basically. Um, I've been doing sort of identity and access security for almost 10 years now. In my past, I've done some work for an e-government projects in Central Europe, in Prague, where I helped design and build identity-centric citizen ID systems, basically. So for those of you that have no idea what that means, that's basically if you ever want to use, let's say, file taxes online and doing different things online, like using your banking identity, for example, to do certain different things with the government. You really need something secure to do that, right? So there's different procedures and different ways of doing that. And I was sort of one of the people behind architecting the identity systems that was created in the Czech Republic at that time.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it was, and so that's kind of what led me to pay later on because I also, I was able to get a lot of knowledge and understand that there's some fundamental problems that are needed to be solved, and that's what basically that later led to device bound access.
Awesome, man. So like I don't know. When I back in my day when I ran my MSP, um I would try and have conversations with my clients about cybersecurity. And I remember a lot of the time it, I don't know, just kind of fell on deaf ears. Um, it's like they just tune it out. Um, what do you think it is? Do you think it's that it doesn't feel like a new toy, so they don't get excited about it, or it doesn't feel like it drives revenue? It feels more like insurance, where it's just a cost and they just don't want to deal with it.
Well, I mean, like partially, I mean, that definitely is a part of it. But on the other hand, I mean, there are things that people invest in that are sort of safety or security related, right? So I don't think it's just that. I think it also has to do with complexity um, of cybersecurity. It has to do with the fact that as an industry, honestly, we're not really that good at communicating things in simple terms, right? Like a lot of us, myself included, are nerds and techies that are just very nerdy about a specific, s- uh, specific technical application that happens to be in cybersecurity, and then we bring that excitement and we bring that knowledge into um, a world of people that are just totally unaware that this is going on, and how exactly their problems are to be solved, and then so and then we come up with terms like device bound access security, which is great for people that are in the know and that are um, sort of tech savvy or cybersecurity savvy because they kind of get it. But then when you're talking to most people, like MSP's customers, basically, then they're kind of lost usually. So I think it's really about bringing it down a little bit and simplifying things in terms that people understand and not really getting too much into technical jargon.
I think that makes perfect sense. Um, all right. So how do we explain it in plain English? So, there's got to be like a non-technical way to explain a threat to your client. Um, and why you also probably need to explain that secure by default isn't real. And I
Right.
think that's probably what people assume is like, well, why would they sell me something that isn't secure? Like, you're just trying to tell me to be extra secure, but I don't need all that. I'm good with the regular security that it already has. I don't think they realize that there is security abilities built in, like through things like group policy objects and different ways to manipulate things on the computer. But like by default, they make computers relatively open so that way they're easily accessible for the end user.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a market thing, right? Like it's, security is quite complicated. One thing we have to realize, I mean, this is, people ask a lot about this. And one thing people forget, I think, is cybersecurity is there because there are bad people trying to break things, basically, right? They
Yeah,
have their motivations and they'll find new ways. So it's really hard because of that, because you all constantly have threat actors that are trying to find workarounds and loopholes in security designs. So it's not a very easy thing if you have a changing target all the time, right? Like if it's a constant, it's easy. But if it's a change in a move in target, you're gonna find yourself in a position where the thing that you put in place today might not actually be useful tomorrow, right?
yeah.
And if you combine that with market economics, you're going to find that it's just easier to create products that are maybe just not secure by default, right? That's just not the what wins in the marketplace, because it's those things that you mentioned, right? It's the toys, it's the functions, it's the new features. Who's concerned about the security of ChatGPT before they try it out, right? Before they tried it out for the first time, like a year and a half ago or something like that. Like no one really cared.
And that's exactly it. And so, yeah, so let's think, and I just want to pause real quick. Um, Groceries are being delivered right now, and if they ring the doorbell, the dog's going to go crazy. The door's closed. My office door's closed, but there's a possibility we hear some barking. So anyway,
It's not me.
what's that?
It's not going to be me, the barking.
It's not. Yeah, it's not David. All right, so there she goes.
There you go.
When you think about using a tool like ChatGPT, um, like you don't realize like, okay, cool, so I can hook it up to my Google Drive and I can tell it, hey, access this file. And the regular everyday person's, I don't know, thoughts are probably going to be, well, I only told it to access this one file, so it's not accessing all my other files. But what they don't realize is that as soon as you connect it to the Google Drive, it inherently has access to the files. Whether it's reading them right now or not is irrelevant. The
Right.
fact that you have granted another machine access to your data should give you pause.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, how do you say that, man?
So, I mean, you mean from a position of an MSP, like how
Uh,
do you uh
how do you explain like I, how do you explain risk like that? Something so simple. How do you explain the potential severity of the risk that they have allowed because they haven't actually had a problem. It's
yeah.
just they've created another opportunity for a problem to exist.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, I think maybe it's not about the specific details of every single risk as much as it is about the culture and what you expect, what the way you can, as an MSP, the type of relationship and partnership you can set up with your client, right? Because
Okay.
I think this is about um, what the position of the MS, and I'll say maybe specifically MSSP. I like I like, I know some people like to use that term, some people don't like to use that term, but in my mind, we are moving toward a world where all MSPs are MSSPs by default, basically, because it's just something that I mean, yeah, you can set up your contracts and whatever, but it's just something that is very much tied to your type of business, right?
Okay.
And the reason why I'm saying that is I think it's I mean, I think a lot of MSPs are feeling the pushback from their clients to have those cybersecurity conversations because they're not giving it the right level of importance in their organization, right? So I think the conversation that needs to be had and the persuasion sort of, or how do you getting the message across is on that level, and establishing the right level of authority in the organization to make sure that it can actually drive change and not worry about having to persuade their partner about every single detail, but having the voice to actually have some authority and on the subject, and being able to basically be a trusted partner, right? Does
Now,
that make sense?
am I allowed to disagree with you about something?
Of
I
course.
don't want to upset you.
Actually, no.
No, I'm not. Okay.
No, go ahead.
All right. So you said a statement that bothered me a little only because I have a uh, I have a memory of somebody else kind of doing this already. So you said you think every MSP is going to shift to being an MSSP, and I disagree to an extent. So there was a guy who started saying he's an MSSP. And it's simply because he said he was like a security first or a security focused MSP. I think I think the problem with calling yourself an MSSP is nothing to do with your clients. It's surprisingly. The clients have no idea. Like, you know, they barely understand the difference between an MD and a DO, and we're talking about a completely different industry.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So they definitely don't know what an MSP and an MSSP are.
Okay.
But what you're going to do if you're an MSP and you just start saying you're an MSSP because you're really starting to focus more on security is you're going to upset companies who like started as MSSPs and they're running much more advanced
Yeah.
security operations.
Yeah.
And that's not to say they're better than you. They just specialize in a completely different thing. They don't go out and like install new servers and fix
Yeah.
desktops and reboot printer. Like that's
Right.
not their thing. all
Yeah,
they specialize in is getting people the right networking equipment, securing it, setting up a SOC and a SIM and monitoring. Like that's the kind of stuff that a security focused
yeah,
MSSP is going to do.
yeah.
So I caution you, David, uh, to just think about the perception not for the MSP's client, but for the MSP's peers
Yeah.
to
I'm
not use that term lightly.
yeah, yeah. I totally understand what you mean, and I think um, maybe what I have in mind more is just the fact that as an MSP, you cannot um, you cannot continue. I mean, I think you have to advance your security practice, and you have to become more
Oh,
active.
100%.
That's the thing that and that's the thing that I'm just trying to say is inevitable. Like, I think maybe the fact that merging the two and saying that it's the same thing, I don't think that's the right way of putting it. I think you're right. But I think it's a matter of what is the role of an MSP and how important is cybersecurity in that role and what that means for the clients, right? And I think that is shifting because of the fact that the world is shifting, right? Because of the fact that the threat landscape is getting, well, it's getting more dangerous, right? It's getting more dangerous for the end customers. It's getting more dangerous for the MSPs as well. They're a target too, right? Remember, right? So, um, yeah.
And uh, we have a good question. Do you, and I think this is a personal opinion type thing because there's no true regulation yet. We are still the Wild West as an industry. Do you think all MSSPs should have certifications of some sort?
Eventually, I guess,
What
but I'm not sure
once
if
we're
now.
regulated, I think that's going to have to be like a baseline.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think the question is when, um, because I do see. So, for those of you who know me, you know that I do this other thing called the Cyber Oinks. I do this with Jamie, where I talk about cybersecurity, and I have some. I have these 12 topics that I cover, where I see that industry experts have um, very vastly different opinions on, basically. And the reason why I'm mentioning this now is because you will what I'm seeing still today is that it's not settled in, basically, right? And I think maybe regulating now might be too early, is basically what I'm saying. I think at some point maybe it might be a good thing to do to kind of set the benchmark and have some sort of certification that can be. And I'm not sure if it needs to be regulated per se. Like, maybe it can just be a industry-led certification or something like that. As long as it's well recognized enough, it might be enough. Like, I'll tell you, I'm not an expert on this, so I can't give you a 100% answer. But I think having a benchmark is definitely a good thing. There are some things already, right? I mean, it's definitely meaningful, I think, for MSPs to have gone through an external audit and have someone else look at them and kind of assess what they do against some sort of a standard to say, hey, like they are a practice that has some level of maturity, let's say, right? Like, I mean, I think that can definitely serve the business. Um, but it's not to say that there should be some regulation at the moment, I don't think.
Mhm. And it's interesting. The chat's kind of woken up around this topic, so I think we're going to live here for a little bit. Um, we're going where the people take us, David. All right, so let me say this. You said you think it might be a little too early to regulate, and I just want to clarify. I think it's important to have um opposing opinions, if anything, just so that way we can have a debate. Not necessarily because I believe my opposing opinion. So this one, I'm I'm going to be contrarian for just out of spite to be contrarian, not because I'm actually trying to debate you and say you're wrong. Um, all right, so you said you don't think we should be regulated yet. Let's take a different let's go to a different camera angle of this topic. Cybersecurity is in itself like we're just talking about computers, things that plug into the wall, right? Like no big deal. You
Mm,
know, doctors like they're working on real people. Like that's completely different. Of course, computers don't need regulated and doctors do. But when you look at the fact that what was it, NHS or one of those like what remember what there were some hospitals like over in the EU, UK, and then even here in the US where like hospitals just get hacked and the whole ERP, EHP, whatever system shuts down and now they don't have any medical records. EMR. Oh my gosh, that's the word I was looking for. I've got too many. Employee health plan. That was the last one I came up with. EMR, electronic medical records. If the computers, get ransomwared and everything gets encrypted, now they don't have access to the records, to the charts. They
right.
don't know what patient's taking what. They don't have printed copies anymore. Everything's on an iPad. Everyone carries around with them.
Yep.
I think cybersecurity is a pretty big deal. The
Yeah.
problem is, I don't think we've figured out what the penalty should be or who should be in charge or who should be penalized. Like if you look at lawyers and doctors, two heavily regulated industries, um, both of those, I believe, have to have their own like personal like insurance, like liability insurance that protects them if they have some sort of malpractice. And as technicians, we don't have anything like that or if it exists, it's not something that's really talked about. And I think like that's going to probably become a thing and you're not going to be able to just read a book and go take a test that's like proctored online at your house anymore. I think it's going to have to turn into you're going to freaking college and getting a 4-year degree and then possibly even getting some type of master's or doctorate to get this certification you need. Like, I think it's going to turn into that. Do I think it's going to happen in 5 or 10 years? I don't know how quickly the education industry sector, whatever moves, but I think that's where it'll
Yeah.
end up eventually.
But you know what? I'm thinking whether I mean, to an extent that is happening in some areas, I think. It's just that it's the responsibility is on the organization that's storing the data, running or owning the systems, right? And then they have their supply chain, and then it's their responsibility to do their due diligence, and um, it's up to them to choose their supplier, right? And that sometimes is an MSP,
Mhm,
right? So I don't know. Like I'm thinking this whole time. I'm thinking you mentioned Europe. I'm thinking about what's going on in Europe in terms of regulation, right? There is a cybersecurity regulation. It's a directive, actually, a European directive about that sets a standard um, for that's defined as critical infrastructure on what needs to be done from a
mhm.
cybersecurity standpoint, right? The US has something as well. Like the US has FedRAMP, right? And if you want to be a cloud services provider for the federal government, essentially, I mean, there are other ways, but essentially, you need to be FedRAMP certified, and you need to go through um, I don't know how many. It's like 163 or whatever controls that
Yeah,
need to be checked. Um, that need to be verified by an external auditor, and then also a federal government employee that is certified to do the second part of the audit. And so I'm saying what I'm saying is I think this is happening to an extent, and then in those situations, if there's an MSP involved, I think maybe given where we are as an industry, it's enough to have those sort of controls in place. right? And just not because like think about like what that the impact of that would be. I think it would be that you would get all of a sudden you'd have a vast reduction of the number of MSPs who are just learning and as the industry is settling in, right? And it's not that some know, and it definitely is that some know better than others, but it's not that there's a clear right way of doing things, right? Even
Mhm.
what we do, I think what we do is pretty fundamental, but it's definitely not the norm, right? So how does that fit in, right?
Man, I feel like I could take this down a crazy rabbit hole, and I don't think I want to do that. All right.
It's up to you,
So,
Steve.
let's do this. David, did at any point in your past, did you like sell cybersecurity to customers who didn't understand it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, can, do you have any like examples at the top of your head of like, I don't know, let's paint a scene for us. Think about this like Dungeons and Dragons, you know, paint the scene,
Yeah.
be our dungeon master and uh describe
Whew.
a customer without naming them unless you
Yeah.
give them a fake name. And
So
what was the scenario and what did you propose and how did you propose it?
so you know what? I'll tell you maybe if you don't mind, I'll take it in a slightly different direction. I'll
Okay.
tell you like what I used to do and what took me a while to learn is not working because I'm a nerd and I like to the person behind Peig and I'm the person that came up with all this stuff and I kind of love it. It's kind of great I think, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, people sometimes don't care, right? And so what I used to do is I would talk a lot about the features. I would talk a lot about what it does, how it works, right? What's happening under the hood, because there's a lot happening under the hood. It's cybersecurity. You want it to be invisible, right? Like you don't want it to be something that's just in your face all the time, because that isn't the thing that you're there to do. Um, and and that wasn't really working well. It's worked with some people that are also excited and geeky, right? But it's definitely not sort of the right approach, and it just totally misses the point for a lot of people that aren't in the industry.
Yeah.
Um,
So is there
so yeah,
what
so I
is
think
there
the
like a better way?
better way, I think for sure, is um, I think it's starting with questions. I think it's not as much about what you do; it's much more about understanding what the other person or the other party does, right? What their business is. Um, what is it that what's their mission? What are their functions? How do they work? How do they operate? What's their processes? And in there, trying helping them to understand what the risk, in our case of account takeover, is. Like, what would that mean if some of their accounts got taken over by a hacker? What is the worst thing that they could do? Right? What is something that could be easily done, for example, right? And what does that
Mhm.
scenario mean for them? So I think that's kind of the way that I've seen is much more practical because it basically builds a bridge between our features and their world where there's no features, there's no cybersecurity, they don't understand it, they just know what they do, but maybe there's something about what they do that they're not realizing, right?
And with that, so instead of saying, what if somebody hacked your computers? You're simply saying, what if you tried to open your database and instead of it opening, you got an error message and it's not the kind of message that that gets fixed by turning it off and back on. It's like catastrophic. We need to recover the whole server from a backup or something crazy, like an expensive problem you're down for hours. What do you
For
do?
example, yeah, yeah, exactly. What do you do, right? Or if your email gets hacked, right, or if your CRM gets hacked, what is the thing that how would you react? What is the thing that you need to do from a legal perspective, or what is the thing that you would do maybe because sometimes those are not the same thing, right? And what does that cost? Like, what does that mean for you? Like, how does that is that a disruption or is it not? And sometimes they will think that it's not right, and that's like totally fine. But because of course, if they don't own the understanding of the problem, then they're probably not a it's kind of you can't push it on them, right? That's not how this works.
Yeah. So I like that approach, David. Um, I have some more stuff we're going to talk about with that approach. We're going to turn it into a simple structure that MSPs like you can use in every conversation you're having with your clients. But first, I like to take a little break in the middle. It's not going to be longer than 5 minutes, I promise. We're gonna do a quick little sponsored segment, let's call it. Uh, David and I are going to tell you a little bit about our platforms, and then we're gonna stop selling you stuff and go right back into the education. David, would you like to take it away? Let people know, what does Peg do, and why do MSPs need it?
All right. So at Peig, we do something we call device-bound access security. What device-bound access security means is that um, pretty much only you and the people from your organization can access your Microsoft 365, your Google Workspace, or really any of the applications that you use from devices that have been authorized. Now that's the geeky part of me, sort of explaining it from a technical point of view. But why does that matter? Well, the reason why that matters is because, especially for web stuff, which for a lot of small and medium businesses is just the majority of what they use, 88% of the time, it's credentials being used by an adversary to access systems remotely that is a critical step to making a breach happen. 88% of the time, right? I'm not making this number up, by the way. This is something that Verizon monitors on a yearly basis in their last report, their 2025 report. They do a nice overview of what's happening, and this is what they found based on 11,000 breaches that have happened um, in the last year. That's what they saw basically, right? They saw that if it's a web service like Microsoft 365, like Google Workspace, like your CRM or whatever else you're using, 88% of the time is a credential. How does that tie into the device bound thing? Well, the fundamental problem with credentials is that they can be used from anywhere. If you have a credential, but you can't use it remotely from your device, you can't access systems, like your email just from anywhere in the world, but you can only access it from that one authorized device in the world. Those credentials become useless, basically. So, in doing so, what we're trying to do is helping companies address this really significant risk that is exposing their companies, basically. There's no
Excellent.
limit, right, on this in
No,
terms of time.
I think that's good, man. No,
Okay,
you're
cool.
good. So, hey, if that sounds interesting to you, if you want to learn a little bit more about what Peg can help your MSP with, I am going to launch a little poll because if you guys have been here before, you know I love my polls. And with this poll, if you just want to let him know if you're interested, I'll give him those results after this. Meanwhile, I'm going to share my screen, and I should have set this up
Ooh,
earlier. Sorry, guys.
you have slides.
I have slides, only four of them. Don't worry. All right. Send live. There we go. Now you see it. Well, hey, we've been talking about how to make things simple for your clients, right? Clear language, less friction, fewer headaches. Well, that's why we built alternative payments in the first place. Uh, look, so this here is the wrong slide. There we go. This is why we built alternative payments in the first place. This here is our payment portal. Your clients can log in, view their invoices, update their payment methods, and even knock out payments without emailing your team or hunting from a PDF from 3 months ago. They can even turn on auto pay, which is basically the set it and forget it crockpot version of paying your bills. And who doesn't love a crockpot? But the real magic is everything we do for your accounting team. And that's because there's a lot of stuff they're not going to have to do anymore. Once the invoice goes out of your PSA, the system handles reminders, collects payments, syncs everything back into your accounting platform. QuickBooks, Xero, FreshBooks, NetSuite. We have 15 integrations as you see here on this screen. Um, Deposits are going to land where they should. Fees are going to get mapped correctly, and nobody has to manually reconcile 47 line items while questioning their life choices. We try to help accounting teams work smarter, not harder, or not cry. That's really the bar that I think we should be shooting for. Um, and if you're looking at this and thinking, huh, might actually save us some time. Well, in a minute, I am going to put up a poll. Actually, looks like everyone responded to this one for David. So I will put up our poll right now. Boop. It's like I booped your nose. And if you're thinking, huh, this might actually save us some time, your only job is to pick the option that says a conversation couldn't hurt. All right, back to your regularly scheduled program. So, David, you
Yes, sir.
said I need to fix the scene. Oops, sorry. There we go. David, you said that you like to like ask the question, how's your system work? Figure out how it works, how they do what they do, and then ask them much more simplified questions. What would happen if you couldn't do it? Is that basically it?
Yeah, I mean, what would happen if you couldn't do it? What would happen? What could someone do with your account on your behalf? What are the things that you can imagine being done on your behalf, right? Um,
Yeah.
what if this customer data gets exposed? What would you do? What would be the action that you would have to take in that situation, or what would be the action that you would take in that situation, right? And how much time would that what would that mean for you in terms of time, right? So understanding those, helping them understand those situations, I think, is important, especially for people who don't really understand cybersecurity. They don't know where it fits, right? And so that's kind of the approach, um, that I've seen, um, working better. I think those are conversations that people can kind of lean into and really be a partner in the conversation, as opposed to just being someone who's basically talked at with technical jargon, without really understanding and mirroring what you're saying, right? Because people are nice generally. They kind of try and, um, give you approval and just kind of nod and just agree with what you're saying. But that doesn't mean that they're committed and that they actually buy in and understand the value of what you're saying, right?
Um, Sorry, I'm thinking of a response.
You know what?
So,
I'm curious,
so
Steve. What would be your approach?
I actually like what you're saying. Before this, it's tough, because I am I'm a very literal person. right? So I always think about it from my perspective. It's really difficult for me to sit and think about another person's perspective. It's actually something I practice. It's because it's like it doesn't come naturally to me. So it's tough. Normally without thinking first, like if I go in unprepared for this conversation, I'm going to instead say, what if you're an idiot and click on one of these email links because you think it's legitimate, but it's not. It's a hacker and they stole your credentials. Obviously, I'm not going to say it like that, but that's basically what they're going to hear, right? Because I'm asking, what if you click something you're not supposed to click? And they're going to say, what the F do you think I am? Some kind of
Yeah.
effing idiot? And I'm going to say, well, no, of course not. And then they're going to say, well, then that wouldn't happen. Now, would it? And I'm going to say, but what if it did? And they're going to say, now you're the idiot. Like that's that is how this conversation goes.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
so yeah, that's what goes through my head, man. Like when I'm actually having this conversation unprepared, like that is how the conversation goes or some variation with that. So I'll actually sit here and remind myself like, okay, if I say it like that, this is likely to happen. Or if they don't say it out loud, they're going to think it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
maybe
Right.
they're more polite
Yeah.
than I give them credit for. So so yeah, if I try to think about it from their perspective, I don't ever say the way you put it. I don't ever look at it as um what's like an inconvenience side of things.
Mhm.
I've always looked at it from the it would really suck if you had like a breach and had to pay to fix it. I always looked at it from the I know my client's a cheapskate. It's cheaper to prevent it than it is to fix it. You know what I mean? But the problem with that pitch is you're selling them on the what if, which is basically I almost said FOMO. What FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? So, but I mean, to an extent, that's what you're doing too, except you're well, no, you're not, because you're actually walking them through something that feels more like a critical thinking exercise. Like, okay, let's just walk through a scenario. Maybe it's not you, but somebody on your team clicks something they shouldn't have, or responds to an email they shouldn't have and something bad happens. And maybe you have like this checklist you go through and you want to just like ask them questions like, what would you do in this scenario? And write down their answers. You don't have to nitpick everything they say right away, but maybe write down their answers and see if based on their response, because it's not just as simple as, all right, let's say you guys accidentally wire $100,000 to somebody in Zimbabwe and you're never going to get that money again. Now what? Like, yes, you probably need to think about all of the what if stuff in that, but you're going to have to dig in a couple layers deeper than that too, right? All right, so if your email gets hacked, no money was lost, but you started sending out emails to your client because somebody else was emailing them, right? And then that kind of almost starts like a chain of things happening to other people that again may not result in any loss for your clients, but several layers down the line it may for someone. So how do you explain that to them in a way that feels more like guiding them through the thought process of, all right, if this happened, here's what I would want us to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, here's what I would like us to do. And then you can ask the, is that enough? Or this is what other people like to do. Or in your industry, there's actually rules that say, you know what, how do you guide them through that?
Well, the thing is, I think, let's say I'll say one example, which is um, um, legal practice, right? Um, there are rules, there are industry rules about what they need to do um, when a breach happens that has the potential to affect their customers and how they need to respond, right? Um, a lot of the times, in my experience, this is not total news to lawyers, right?
Yeah,
Like
they know that that regulation exists.
they know that exists, they know that's a thing. Um, and but I think the problem is, without starting the conversation there, they are likely not able to link what that means, um, in terms of what we're doing, for example, right? And what that means from from a practical perspective, um, in cybersecurity. And so linking it to those scenarios and to how they operate ties it back, creates that um, bridge basically between that requirement and what we are doing at Peig as uh, as a cybersecurity vendor, or what MSPs do in their businesses, right? Because it makes it um, and I think honestly, because you're talking about fear, right? And I think this kind of helps take the situation away from just being emotional to being something that is tangible and that they can actually point a finger to and understand and actually visualize what that means, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I think, this approach has been working better for us. Um, there might be other ways, but this is something that I've just have the experience that, if you start from their point of view, if you start from their position, um, it's likely going to help resolve, or dissolve fears and actually help induce action because it's something that is tangible and it's something that actually makes sense in their world, right?
And I like to get feeling involved. Now, sometimes I wonder if this is being manipulative, and it's, because I do worry about how I'm perceived. So, I don't want to come across as a jerk. Um, but I have found that when you get people thinking about the right thing, then it's not manipulative because how do I describe it? It's one thing to make them feel a certain way because you're trying to sell them something. It's another thing to get them to feel a certain way because you want them to understand something base, and that's it. Like, it's not I'm trying to sell you something, I'm just trying to get you to understand.
Right. Yeah.
Um and I say that in the same way that um I came up with a really great thing that I've never heard before. I'm not saying it's the first time it's ever been said, but I thought of it on my own this morning, and I can't wait to say it to my son because he likes to do things he shouldn't. Um, I have been talking to my son, and I'm going to give you a story that I hope you guys can link. Okay, I've been trying to like teach my son, um, like right and wrong. We'll call it. Okay, he likes to just like go on the TV when he's not supposed to, stay up past bedtime, sneak out into the living room, go on the TV at 1 in the morning, stay up until 4 when I've inevitably, as an old man, wake up to go pee, catch him on the TV, and then it becomes a big thing at 4 in the morning when I'm supposed to be going back to bed and sleeping. Now I'm frustrated because my son has again not gotten any sleep at night and instead has chosen to watch TV. So anyway, um, he keeps saying things like, I want to get a gaming computer in my room. Like, bro, I can't even trust you with a TV in the living room. Why would I trust you with any gadgets in your room? Um, so I keep trying to suggest that he needs to convince me to trust him, basically, if if I were to shorten everything. But what I really need him to do is show me that he's trustworthy,
Mhm.
not just to convince me to trust him. And I
Mhm.
think that's the difference is sometimes salespeople skip the convincing you I'm trustworthy and they just
Yeah.
go to convincing you to trust me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like that where, all right, let's get them to feel an emotion. Like, how would you feel if everyone came into work tomorrow and none of your computers worked? Like, how would that truly impact your business? How would it impact your finances, everything, right? And if that doesn't really seem to impact them, then maybe that's not a problem that we need to worry about right now. Not that we never need to worry about it, but let's be honest, we're not going to hit every single control in a first conversation. So just put that one on the back burner and go to a different control, right? Okay, well, let's think about your reputation. Like, how do you want to be seen as a person, Mr. Client? Like, does your integrity mean a lot to you? Like, try and ask questions that get you to learn more about that side of them as a person, to understand what drives them, because then you can say, all right, well, what if your emails got hacked and one or several of your employees were sending out emails to your customer asking them to wire money to you, but it's really going to some other guy's bank account because he's trying to steal from your customers and make it look like you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that would really suck, right?
Yeah.
And like, if you get them to understand, like, holy cow, like that would really damage my reputation, that would damage my integrity, like all of these things, it would look bad.
Yeah.
And
I was just gonna say, like, if you're thinking about it as just a human conversation,
yeah.
and you're there to help, first of all, with advice, right? And if you're given advice without even knowing their context and their situation, how likely is it that it's actually well intended?
Well, not only that, but how can the advice be good?
Well, that's the
If
thing, because
yeah.
like, how can it be good if it's well, maybe okay, maybe well intended is going a little bit too far, but how can it be good if you don't know what their situation is? It's very likely um not applicable for 1,000 different reasons, right?
Mhm.
And that's okay. But I think, like, if since we're now going sort of looking at it from the angle of the salesperson, it's that's their job, is to have that integrity and to have the curiosity, and actually have a really a client first approach, in the sense of, first, this is a person that owns or works in a company, and they have their problems, and I need to understand what their problems are. And only once I understand, maybe I can see if that what we do can help them somehow and fits into what they're doing, right? Because otherwise it is manipulative, right?
Mhm. So I'm going to ask a question and I'll give you my answer first. I have not prioritized this, but I keep telling myself maybe I should. Maybe this is the year. 2026, I'm saying it out loud to people so you hear me. I'm going to read at least one of these kinds of books. Have you, David, ever read any books on, I'm going to call it psychology, but I mean it like in general, whether it's on sales, on cybersecurity, whatever. But it's like, have you read any like books, nonfiction around psychology so that way you can understand people better to have
Okay.
better conversations?
So I've just started reading one actually. It's a book that was recommended to me by a salesperson and one of our partners. It's called Never Split the Difference, and
Yeah.
I think it's a book that's often read. I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know where it's read. Like this is just my situation was it was recommended to me by a salesperson. But I actually started reading it for a different reason. I started reading it because as we're growing, I've been seeing that my old habits haven't really been working that well. Yeah, that's right. My old habits haven't really been working that well for leading our organization, and I have started seeing that there's basically limits to my capacity and the way that I can split my time. Um, and what was interesting is that what that basically led to is us needing to do quite a lot of change, right? But as I've kind of started planning out some of those changes organizationally and kind of started um, preparing how we actually kind of go forward as an organization, I've realized that it's really important to have conversations that are not directive, let's say, and not sort of this is how it's going to be from now on, and this is how we're going to do it, but have conversations that actually um, are have sort of co-ownership of this change, right? And so this is where what I learned in that book kind of helped me understand a little bit about how people think. And one of those things is um, basically getting the fears out there first and getting the negatives voiced out loud and not really being afraid of them, and then kind of just facing that head on is, I think, one of the key takeaways from that book. And I think um, like being a bit more conscious about it and applying that in situations that have been internal so far. But also, I think I can totally imagine that just being a general thing for human conversations and just for um, finding ways to work together, right? And I think when you said, by the way, when you said like that some of those approaches can, um, there's that sort of question of is this manipulative, right? And I think when I've been reading that book, that's something that came to my mind a lot. But I've come to the conclusion that it's not, because if I think the manipulation comes from what's inside a person, right? If you don't have integrity, if you have bad intent, and that's manipulation, right? But if there is integrity, if there's actually intent to help the other person, just like with any other tools, also it's something that can be used for good or bad.
Very cool. And I just want to throw it out there to everyone listening. Um, you can get the book, Never Split the Difference. I'm not trying to sell you the book. Just hold on a second. If you have one of those Kindle Unlimited subscriptions, this book is included in it. So that's all I'm trying to say is, and then you can also check, like, for those of you who may have forgotten, the library is a wonderful place, and they have apps now where you can get books digitally, like Libby, and you can rent the Kindle version of a book from your library. So you don't have to buy the book if you don't think you're going to read it over and over. Um, hey, look, it's 12 o'clock. We are out of time. David, this was such an awesome conversation. I can't thank you enough for this.
Thank you, Steve. This was really great.
Yeah, thank you. We've got two more webinars this week. I think we have three webinars next week. We are instead of a Cyber Monday sale, we have decided to overwhelm you all with free education through like the first 2 or 3 weeks of December. So I can't wait to see you all at the next webinar. And thank you all so much. You all have a good one.